I just finished making this ridiculously cool little shelf, and I'll share with you how I did that. I just have here a piece of scrap that I'll cut this all out of. I just have this little chunk of scrap that I'll make the bracing out of. These two pieces will go together like so, but I want to just round these off. Let's do that little sandpaper. There's the bottom piece, and there's the top piece, like this. And I will glue those together. I have that. So I have my two little supports. A little bit of texture. A little bit of sanding just to break those edges a bit. Those are textured and sanded. Next, I'll just cut some boards out for the shelf. So I actually prefer to cut these apart and then just glue them back together again. I know that seems redundant, but it just looks better, I think. I want to add that little bar underneath there. And for that, I'm just going to use a round toothpick. Tack one of these down on the shelf. I'll put it a little hole here where I want it. Put the hole on the other side where I want it. And glue it in. Glue the other side on. All right, there I have all my little pieces glued together, and I will just paint this black Mod Podge base coat here. And for my paint scheme on this one, I'm going to go with this is just a burnt sienna. As you can see, it's a rather orange leaning brown, and very, very thin coat on this. I don't want to bury this in here. I'm kind of using the base coat to change this orangey brown to more of a kind of a cherry, maybe cherry wood. The base coat shows through rather significantly. Just doing an overbrush, just kind of tinting here, if you will. I'm going from that black to this, stained cherry or walnut maybe. So I know you're going to think me crazy, but I'm actually going to dry brush with just this tan today. It's a little bit darker than the suede, and I don't want this wood to look as aged as I would as I do other wood normally. I want this is going to be some interior wood, so a little less aged. Just a quick dry brush with some tan just to pull this back toward the brown a bit. So something you should always consider is that, at least for me, I'm using washes at the end. So your dry brushing isn't your final tone, if you will. So for example, this is rather light colored, but it's going to be muted quite a bit by the wash. So when you're doing your dry brushing, sometimes you may be afraid you've done too much dry brush, and sometimes you do. But largely, those mistakes, that error, will be covered by your wash at the end. And then if your wash, takes away too much of that highlight, then you can just go back and lay on highlights. And for this, I'm going to go with my brown wash, and I'll lay this on here relatively liberally, making sure it's getting down into all the detail. Take a little paper towel and just kind of dab at it a bit. So you see there, it's not so bright as it was, but it has kind of a finished hardwood look to it, which I'm really pleased with. All that's left to do is to tack it into my piece, which I have here. I think those look pretty good.